Hi, Aaron O'Toole and Randy Hoback live from Capitol Hill in Washington, wrapping up several days of meeting on the Hill with members of Congress on the importance of trade, finalizing the USMCA, but to do that needing to eliminate tariffs. So we just finished a great meeting with Congressman Will Hurd from Texas. We met with Congressman Dan Crenshaw ahead of that. We also had the very special opportunity to address a meeting of about 100 Republican members of Congress and give our pitch for why tariffs need to be removed right away before we can get into ratifying the new NAFTA, and reminding a lot of people on the Hill in the last few days that Canada has an election this fall, so we've got to take advantage of the next few months. We need the tariffs off right away. And it was good because it was resonating and it was clear a lot of Americans don't know our election's on the horizon.
Yeah, actually that's very surprising, Aaron. When we talked to them, they thought always thinking their time frames and their dates. And they started to realize that we got an election coming up in Canada and we only got about 9 weeks to put through enacting legislation. They start to look at it and say, whoa, that's a short period of time. But the reality is, if we don't get moving on 232s on aluminum and steel, it's really going to be tough for Canadians to move forward with this piece of enacting legislation to get USMCA through. So there's a lot of stress here. There's a lot of concern now, and I think we raised a lot of concern amongst these Republican friends down here that they didn't have before this morning.
Absolutely, and meeting with veterans like Dan Crenshaw and former CIA officers like William Hurd, Homeland Security partnership Canada has, and that tariffs based on security make absolutely no sense for Canada. We've also raised the risk of uranium being the next commodity impacted by 232 tariffs, and that Canada, both on a civilian and military use, has been a partner with respect to uranium going back to the last World War. So let's get some context to the trade and security relationship between Canada and the US. Of course, the Darlington generating station, big in my riding, and clean nuclear energy being critical, but the uranium from it coming from your province.
That's right, and you know, it's a very important industry here in Saskatchewan, and 232s would have a really negative impact on our economy in Saskatchewan and on the uranium sector in North America, and actually I think would be really negative for North America in total. But you know, we talked about uranium, we talked about trade, 232s. You know, they actually were very curious as I started talking about canola and China and what's happening there. You know, how we need to have a North American game plan to how to deal with the issues when it comes to trade issues with China. We had some great discussions and some ideas exchanged back and forth and things we can do together to make a market that's more stable, more predictable, more balanced. So all in all, they understand that they're dealing with it themselves, Aaron, on agriculture goods right now. And you know, President Trump down here is actually really playing hardball with China on some issues, and I think we're getting squeezed because of that. But in the same breath, we can see opportunities because of that too.
And it's a nice, refreshing change for us. We were able to say down here to Republicans that Conservatives will work with Liberals in Canada on passage of USMCA if we can get those tariffs off. So it's an example of bipartisanship, that we will actually work with the government on the timeline we have in Canada to make sure that we all protect the jobs, the millions of jobs, frankly, in Canada dependent on trade with the United States and dependent on the NAFTA trade agreement. So we made that case clear. We're here to work on a bipartisan level. We had great support from the Canadian Embassy here, and we've said that from the start. If the Conservative caucus, Andrew Scheer, myself, Randy with his trade knowledge, if we can work on securing trade access, eliminating the tariffs, we'll come down on a joint trip to take the politics totally out of that. Let's get this resolved, the tariffs immediately, and trade uncertainty before we get into our election cycle in the fall. We don't need an election fought on free trade. As some people reminded us today, we had that in 1988. Canadians support trade. We're supportive of modernizing NAFTA, but we need to get it done in the next few months.
That's exactly right, Aaron. And I think that message was heard loud and clear and resonated back to us. So let's get her done, and I think we've got the tools to get it done. It just takes the willpower of us getting it down here and getting it done.
Let's get her done. I can't think of any better way to end. Live from Capitol Hill in Washington, MP Randy Hoback and Aaron O'Toole, thanks for tuning in.